The council's great station hung silent above the blue curve of a gas giant. Trade routes crossed below like silver threads, and for centuries, this had been the heart of peace in the galaxy. But today, something new had entered their skies. It was small, too small to be a threat, and that made it worse. No one knew who it belonged to, and no one could trace its jump signature. It had appeared out of nothing and stayed there unmoving, watching. Inside the council chamber, dozens of species gathered in a wide circle of light. The air was filled with the sound of translators and whispers. The delegates had seen the strange craft on their screens, black and smooth, not broadcasting any signals. It carried no weapons that they could detect, but there was something about it that made everyone uneasy. It looked peaceful, yes, but too peaceful, too still. "The signature matches human technology," said Admiral Vurek, a tall being covered in silver scales. "But it is not a design we know." At the word human, the room stirred. Some delegates laughed softly. Others frowned. Humanity was considered young in the galactic scale, too emotional, too unpredictable, and too kind for their own good. They were always trying to help, to negotiate, to smile through insults. They had joined the council decades ago and had been friendly ever since, but now, this silent ship hovering in the dark was something different. The council's head speaker, Arv-10, tapped his staff. "Summon their representative," he said. "We will hear what Earth has to say." Moments later, a small transport left the mysterious ship. It moved slowly, deliberately toward the station's docking bay. No escorts, no defense drones, just a single ship approaching the most powerful government in the galaxy. Even the docking computers hesitated before allowing it in. From the transport, one human stepped out, a man in a dark suit, carrying no weapon, no armor. His face was calm, his eyes steady. The guards escorted him through long metal corridors until they reached the council's chamber. Every species turned to watch him walk to the center circle. He stopped, looked around once, and spoke in a quiet, even tone. "I am Envoy Mason of Earth." Arv-10's voice was sharp. "Envoy Mason, your ship entered restricted space without notice. Do you understand the violation you have caused?" "I do," Mason said, still calm. "But we did not come here to ask permission. We came to deliver a message." That single sentence made the room stir again. A few counselors laughed out loud. "Deliver a message?" one said mockingly. "Do you think the council answers to Earth?" Mason didn't react. "No," he said. "But the council will listen." His eyes scanned the room slowly, resting on each delegate. "For years, Earth has followed your laws. We accepted trade restrictions. We allowed patrols to search our freighters. We even stayed out of conflicts that directly threatened our colonies. We did this because we believed in peace." He paused. "You believed we were weak. That was the mistake." Arv-10 leaned forward, his voice low. "Is that a threat, human?" Mason shook his head. "No, it's a truth you've ignored. You think humanity is kind because we must be, because we are small. But that's not why we're kind. We're kind because it's the right choice, and because you wouldn't survive the other choice." The lights in the chamber dimmed for just a second, as if something had passed near the station. The council members turned toward the windows. There beyond the glass, the black ship was still waiting. And then suddenly it wasn't alone. 3 more ships appeared beside it, silent as ghosts. No warp flash, no sound. They were simply there. Arv-10's voice trembled now. "You brought warships into our orbit?" "They are not warships," Mason said softly. "They are scouts, observation vessels. But they can defend themselves if they must." One of the delegates slammed his fist on the table. "You dare threaten us in our own hall?" Mason finally looked directly at him. His tone stayed calm, but the words were heavy. "If I were threatening you, you would already know. Earth doesn't make threats. We make promises." Silence spread through the chamber. The delegates exchanged glances, but none spoke. Outside, the human ships drifted in perfect formation, their dark hulls reflecting the blue light of the gas giant. They emitted no radiation, no communication, just silent, controlled power. Mason placed a small device on the central platform. It projected a faint hologram of the outer rim of the galaxy. Dozens of faint points of light blinked into view, stations, colonies, and outposts, all human. But then new points appeared, hidden bases, defense arrays, things the council had never seen before. "These are not weapons," Mason said. "These are precautions. For years we built them quietly within our space, following every law you wrote. You called us harmless because we followed your rules. You never asked why we were so good at following them, Arvton whispered. What are you saying? Mason looked up, and for the first time a small, cold smile touched his lips. I'm saying that Earth has been polite for a reason. Our patience is not weakness. It's warning. The projection faded. The chamber lights flickered back to full brightness. Mason turned toward the door. We came to ask you to stop your border raids. Return our people. Respect our space. That's all. If you don't, then you'll see what happens when Earth stops being nice. He walked away without another word. The guards didn't move. The door closed behind him. For a long time, no one in the chamber spoke. Then one of the counselors whispered. They were smiling all this time. Outside, the human ships began to drift away, fading into the void like shadows dissolving into deeper darkness. The council realized too late that the warning had already been given, quietly, politely, and with a calm that was far more terrifying than any open threat. The council chamber remained silent long after Envoy Mason left. Delegates sat frozen in their seats, trying to process what they had just witnessed. The human's calm tone lingered in the air like smoke from a quiet fire. No shouting, no threats, just that simple warning. Earth has been polite for a reason. It had sounded almost gentle, but everyone there understood the weight behind it. Outside, the dark ships vanished into deep space. No jump signature, no trace, nothing. The sensors couldn't track them, and even the Council's most advanced scanners failed to detect where they had gone. It was as if they had melted into the stars. That alone terrified the Council more than any weapon could. Admiral Vurek broke the silence first. We should alert the defense fleet, he said. If the humans possess technology that hides from our sensors, then we are already at risk. Arv-10, the council speaker, raised a hand. No, we must understand what they meant. They said they were still being polite. That means they have not acted yet, Vurek hissed. You think that was politeness? That was a display of power. Arv-10's gaze fell to the floor. Exactly, he said quietly. A warning wrapped in manners. In the back row, a young diplomat from the relax species whispered to her neighbor. They have always smiled, always traded. I never thought. None of us did, the elder beside her muttered. We were blinded by their kindness. Meanwhile, deep within the council's communication center, a transmission flashed onto the main screen. Encrypted, priority human channel. The technicians exchanged worried looks. No one dared open it without permission. Arv-10 arrived moments later and ordered it displayed. The hologram showed a star map, not of council space, but of the border regions where several human colonies existed. Red markers blinked at the edges, council-licensed privateers operating in those areas. And then, as if in reply, blue signals appeared. Human ships, unknown class, moving fast and in perfect formation. They are responding already, said Vurek. No, Arv-10 corrected softly. They are reminding us they can. The message ended with a single line of text in the human language. We still prefer peace. Do not test the alternative. Across the station, panic spread quietly. Reports came in from patrol fleets, human vessels appearing and disappearing along trade lanes. They never attacked. They never fired. They just appeared, hovered, and then vanished again. Like ghosts leaving footprints. The council called an emergency night session. Delegates shouted across the hall. Some demanded sanctions, others demanded war. They're bluffing, cried one of the Zovac generals. They're still human. They don't have the strength for a real fight. Arv-10 turned his old eyes toward the general. You saw the ships, General. They moved without energy spikes, without drive trails. Our fleets can't even leave orbit without creating a signature large enough to see from a moon. Do you think that's bluffing? The general fell silent. Vurek crossed his arms. They claim to have no warships, but what if those couriers are weapons in disguise? Then they are weapons we cannot see, said Arv-10, and that makes them far more dangerous than ones we can. A heavy silence fell again. The truth was simple and terrifying. No one knew how advanced Earth had become. They had kept their distance, traded politely, followed the laws, and smiled while building something unseen in the dark. Far across space on the surface of Earth, the real story unfolded. Inside a secure underground command center beneath the Andes, a group of human officers stood around a massive holographic display. Each glowing dot represented one of the courier ships now orbiting the Council's territory. Envoy Mason delivered the message, said a woman in a dark uniform. The council's sensors are blind to our gates. They're afraid, but they won't act yet. A tall man with gray hair nodded. Good. Fear is useful. Fear buys time. We don't want war. Not yet. He pointed to the projection of the council's star systems. They think we only have 3 ships. Let's keep it that way. One of the officers frowned. And if they send scouts? The man smiled faintly. Then we'll show them another anchor. Through the hologram, the map expanded, revealing hundreds of hidden installations scattered across the galaxy. Gravitational gates, stealth stations, deep space sensors, all connected like a web of invisible lines. This, the man said, is why we were polite. The council thinks we're just another species trying to fit in. They never realized that while they were arguing over borders, humanity was learning everything about them. Their ship layouts, their energy signatures, even their communication weaknesses. The woman beside him crossed her arms, and now they know we were playing nice. He looked up at her, eyes calm and steady. Good. Let them think that was a warning. It was. Meanwhile, back in the council's central world, rumors spread like wildfire. Civilian ships refused to approach human space. News networks called the humans the silent power. Some claimed Earth had a hidden fleet the size of the council's own. Others said humans had created weapons that could erase planets without firing a shot. In truth, none of those things were fully true. Yet none of them were lies either. Humanity had reached a point where the truth itself was stranger than any rumor. On the observation deck of the station, Arv-10 stood alone, staring into the endless dark. The gas giant below glowed like a sleeping beast, and somewhere beyond the human ships waited, unseen but not gone. He whispered to himself, all this time, they smiled to keep us calm, and we mistook their calm for weakness. Behind him, Admiral Vurek entered quietly. Speaker, the defense fleet is ready to mobilize. Should we act? Arv-10 shook his head. No, not yet. Send word to the privateers, release the human captives, every one of them. Vurek blinked. You think that will be enough? It will be a start, Arv-10 said. Because if that man was right, we've already run out of warnings. He turned back toward the stars. Somewhere out there, humanity was watching, silent, patient, and powerful beyond measure. The council had thought Earth's kindness was their weakness. Now they understood the truth. It was mercy, and mercy always runs out. As the station lights dimmed into night cycle, the council finally understood that Earth's quiet smile had never been surrender. It had always been a choice, and the galaxy had just seen what would happen if that choice changed. The next morning, the council world woke under a different kind of silence. It was not the calm of peace, but the quiet that follows fear. The media channels that once mocked Earth now replayed Envoy Mason's words again and again, searching for hidden meaning in every pause. In the grand plazas, people gathered around holoscreens showing images of the human ships, black against the stars, motionless and patient. No one spoke above a whisper. Inside the central tower, Speaker Arv-10 stood before the great window overlooking the gas giant below. He had not slept. His eyes followed the faint lights of patrol craft moving across the station's hull. He knew the council's unity was cracking. Some worlds demanded the humans be punished immediately. Others begged for talks. Fear was spreading faster than logic. The door behind him opened with a hiss. Admiral Vurek entered, his silver-scaled armor reflecting the pale morning light. The delegates are waiting, he said. They want to know our next move. Arv-10 didn't turn. Our next move decides if the galaxy survives another year, he murmured. Vurek shifted uncomfortably. The fleet command insists we can't let the humans dictate terms. They say we must show strength. Arv-10 finally faced him. Strength? Admiral, what strength do we have against something we don't understand? They moved entire ships without energy spikes. They vanished from sensors. They reappeared inside restricted space without a single alarm. If that is what they show us when they are being polite, what do you think they will show us when they stop? Vurek looked away. Then what do you suggest, Speaker? Arv-10 sighed. We talk. We stall. We listen. And we pray that the humans meant what they said, that they still prefer peace. Meanwhile, far away, in the dark between the stars, The human fleet drifted near a small red dwarf sun. Inside one of the ships, the command center glowed with faint blue light. Envoy Mason stood before a large, transparent display showing real-time transmissions from Council space. He watched as broadcasts repeated his message. His face remained expressionless, but the corners of his eyes hinted at something, sadness, perhaps, or resolve. A soft voice broke the silence. "Do you think they'll listen?" It was Captain Reyes, a woman with short hair and sharp eyes, who stood beside him. "They'll argue first," Mason said. "They always do. That's their habit. Talk until the danger disappears." "But this time it won't," Reyes replied. "This time they saw what's real." Mason turned from the display. "That's the problem. They saw too little and still understood too much. We never wanted this." Reyes smiled faintly. "You mean we didn't want to show this?" Mason nodded. "We built the gates to defend, not to conquer. But fear spreads faster than truth." He looked back to the star map. Each glowing blue point represented a hidden anchor, human technology scattered across dozens of systems. Each one was capable of folding space, of turning defense into something that looked like magic to the rest of the galaxy. "Command wants us to hold position," Reyes said quietly. "No aggression. No more appearances, just observation." "Good," Mason replied. "We keep our silence. The moment we speak again, it must be with purpose." Reyes hesitated. "And if they strike first?" Mason's eyes hardened. "Then Earth will stop being polite." Back in Council space, rumors became action. A small fleet of privateer ships, half legal, half deniable, was sent to the edge of human territory. The Council claimed it was for investigation, but everyone knew the truth. They wanted to test how far they could push before Earth reacted. The fleet reached the system known as Varen's Drift, a quiet human mining colony surrounded by asteroid fields. At first, nothing happened. The humans didn't respond to hails. The privateers grew bold and entered orbit, scanning facilities, intercepting transmissions. Then, one of them made the mistake of firing a warning shot near a human freighter. The shot never reached its target. In the same instant the weapon fired, the beam folded in on itself and vanished. The firing ship's sensors went blind, and its engines shut down without warning. Then the ship drifted sideways and froze. Not exploded, not destroyed, just frozen in space like a toy trapped in amber. The rest of the fleet panicked. Their systems flickered, alarms blared, and then, one by one, their ships vanished from sensors. To the Council observers watching from afar, the entire fleet had disappeared in less than 10 seconds. No explosion. No debris. Just silence. Back on the Council station, technicians screamed across channels trying to recover data. "We lost. Contact, no response from any ship." Arvton gripped the edge of the console. "Where are they?" "Unknown speaker," a technician said. "It's like they were erased." Vurek stepped closer, voice trembling. "That was a test. The humans warned us." Arv-10 nodded slowly. "Yes, and they gave us one chance. We just used it." In the following hours, messages poured in from every system. Human ships appeared briefly near major Council worlds, not attacking, not broadcasting, just hovering silently above capitals for a few minutes before vanishing again. Every appearance felt like a whisper. "We are here. We are watching." Panic turned into chaos. The markets crashed. Military fleets recalled ships to home sectors. Planets sealed their borders. And still, Earth said nothing. Late that night, a secure transmission reached the Council chamber. The code was unmistakably human. Arv-10 hesitated before opening it. A familiar face appeared, Envoy Mason. He looked the same, calm, patient, with that quiet confidence that frightened them all. "Speaker Arv-10," Mason began. "I am not here to threaten. You sent ships into our territory. They are safe. For now, you may collect them once you agree to our terms." "What terms?" Arv-10 asked, voice low. "End all privateer activity against human colonies," Mason said. cease unauthorized patrols within 5 light years of our systems, and release our detained citizens. In return, we will maintain peace. Arv-10 swallowed hard. And if we refuse? Mason looked directly into the lens. His expression didn't change. Then you will learn what it truly means when Earth stops being nice. The screen went dark. Vurek turned to Arv-10. We can't fight this, can we? No, Arv-10 said quietly. We can only hope to survive it. Outside the council's windows, the stars shimmered faintly. Somewhere among them, unseen and patient, humanity waited, not with rage, but with control. And that calm, steady restraint was more terrifying than any weapon ever forged, because the council finally understood something terrible and true. Earth's kindness had never been weakness. It had always been a warning. The council station orbited in uneasy quiet. The corridors, once filled with chatter and trade, now echoed with low whispers and hurried footsteps. Fear had seeped into every level of the massive ring city. No one said it openly, but every being on board knew. The humans had shown them a glimpse of something far beyond their understanding. Inside the grand chamber, Speaker Arv-10 sat alone at the central table. Dozens of holoscreens floated before him, each showing reports from different sectors. More human ships sighted, no aggression, no signals, no demands, just silent observation. Their presence was like a shadow that never left. The door slid open and Admiral Vurek entered with his usual sharp stride, though his face betrayed exhaustion. The colonies are panicking, he said. Trade routes through human space have gone quiet. No freighters, no escorts. They've shut everything down. Arv-10 rubbed his temples. Good. That means they're still being careful. If they wanted us gone, there would be no warnings, no ships left to send reports. Vurek frowned. You sound as if you admire them. I do not admire, Arv-10 said softly. I understand. Before Vurek could respond, a deep chime echoed across the room. The council's communication network had detected an incoming transmission, encrypted, direct, and carrying a signature that made every technician on the station freeze. Origin, Sol system, one of them said quietly. It's from Earth itself. The air thickened. No one spoke. Arv-10 gestured to open the channel. The projection came to life. A woman in a dark navy uniform stood against a backdrop of stars and glowing data streams. Her posture was straight, her expression calm but unreadable. I am Admiral Kira Solon, speaking on behalf of Earth Command, she said. Her voice carried no arrogance, only certainty. We are contacting the Galactic Council to confirm that your privateers and scout vessels have been safely returned. No harm has come to them, Arv-10 leaned forward. Returned where? In orbit of their homeworlds, she said simply. You will find their ships intact. However, you will also find that every system log, every recorded sensor file has been wiped. Consider it our courtesy. The chamber erupted in hushed confusion. Vurek stared at the hologram. You tampered with military vessels across 5 sectors. Admiral Solon's gaze didn't waver. We corrected a misunderstanding. Earth does not tolerate hostilities against its people. But we have no wish for war. Arv-10 held up a hand to quiet the others. Admiral Solon, what exactly do you want from the Council? The human's face softened slightly, though the tone of her voice stayed steady. We want peace, Speaker, but not the kind that comes from fear or treaties written in arrogance. We want respect. You may think you've seen our power, but what you've seen is control, restraint. She paused, letting the silence stretch. Do not make us prove what happens when that restraint ends. The hologram flickered out, leaving only the faint hum of the projectors. Arv-10 turned slowly toward Vurek. You see now why I said we must listen? The Admiral nodded reluctantly. Yes, but peace built on fear cannot last. Arv-10's gaze drifted to the window where distant stars glowed faintly. Neither can arrogance. Across the galaxy, events unfolded faster than the Council could react. On fringe colonies once considered safe, human fleets appeared suddenly, hovering just beyond detection range. They interfered with no one, yet their presence alone forced every nearby ship to retreat. The Council's patrols called it psychological warfare. Civilians called it justice. On one of those colonies, a young Zelian trader named Cora watched as a black human vessel drifted silently over the horizon. She had always thought of humans as gentle traders, the kind who smiled too much and asked too many questions. But now, seeing that colossal ship hovering above her world, she realized that maybe those smiles had been armor. Maybe kindness had been camouflage. Her father whispered beside her, "They could have destroyed us months ago." They didn't. Cora stared at the ship, its blue lights pulsing like a heartbeat. Maybe they were waiting for us to understand why. Meanwhile, back on Earth, Admiral Solon stood in a circular command room surrounded by dozens of holoscreens. Reports flowed in from every anchor site. Fleet movements, council transmissions, intercepted chatter. The room buzzed with quiet efficiency. "Council response?" she asked. "Stalled," replied one officer. "They're arguing among themselves. Some want peace, others want revenge." Solon nodded. "Then they still haven't learned." Envoy Mason entered the room, his expression calm as ever. "They'll learn soon enough. Fear is a fast teacher." Solon looked at him. "You think they'll submit?" He smiled faintly. "No, they'll adapt. They'll prepare for a war they can't win, and then, when they realize it's useless, they'll finally start listening." Solon crossed her arms. "And if they don't?" Mason's voice lowered. "Then we show them what happens when humanity stops being kind." At that moment, across light years, a council fleet accidentally stumbled upon one of the hidden human gates, a massive, crystalline structure orbiting a dying star. They approached cautiously, sending drones to scan it. The first drone vanished. Then the second. Then the third. The fleet commander ordered a retreat, but before they could move, the star itself flared, only for the light to freeze mid-expansion, frozen like a still image. Every sensor went blind, and then, from the stillness, a voice echoed through their comms, calm, human, familiar. "You were warned." The flare reversed itself, the star returning to its calm red glow as if nothing had happened. Every ship's system rebooted. The fleet found itself repositioned, hundreds of kilometers from where they had been moments ago. No damage, no loss, just a very clear message. When the council received the fleet's report, they didn't know what to believe. Some called it human manipulation. Others whispered that Earth had learned to control time itself. In the end, Arvton gathered the council once more. He spoke quietly, his voice carrying through the chamber. "We built our power on fear and control. Humanity built theirs on patience and silence. They smiled while we measured their worth, but they never stopped measuring ours." He looked up, his expression heavy with understanding. "And now the galaxy must decide. Do we listen to their warning, or do we wait for the moment when Earth finally stops smiling?" No one answered. Outside the window, a dark shape appeared briefly among the stars, watching, waiting, unseen. And then, like all things human lately, it simply vanished into the void. The stars around the council's space burned cold and distant, untouched by the storms rising beneath them. Days had passed since Admiral Solon's warning, but the council had done nothing. They debated endlessly, dividing into two camps, those who feared humanity and those who refused to. The great chamber had turned from a place of order into a war of words. "The humans manipulate perception," one delegate shouted. "They use illusion, psychological warfare. And yet their ships move through void without leaving trails," another countered. "Illusions do not bend physics." Arvton listened from his seat, silent and weary. He could feel the same thought stirring in every mind around him. If they wanted to destroy us, why haven't they? He finally rose, his deep voice cutting through the noise. "Because they don't need to. That's what none of you understand." The chamber fell quiet. They already won the moment they chose restraint. "Every second we argue while they do nothing, they tighten their hold." His words hung heavy in the air. Even the proudest delegates found no argument to offer. Admiral Vurick stepped forward from the observation platform. "Speaker, if we cannot fight them and cannot control them, what are we to do? We cannot submit." Arvton turned toward the window, watching the streaks of light from passing shuttles outside. "Perhaps we learn." A murmur rippled through the room. "Learn?" someone repeated. "Yes," he said. "For centuries we have ruled through fear and dominance. Humanity rules through restraint, and it terrifies us because it works." Before the chamber could respond, an alarm blared through the hall. The sound was sharp, echoing down corridors. Arvton's pulse quickened. "Report," he barked. A technician's voice came over the intercom, shaky and uncertain. "Unidentified anomaly near the outer defense perimeter. No energy spike, no signal, it's just there." The delegates rushed to the observation deck. Beyond the glass, against the field of stars, a shape floated, massive, silent, darker than space itself. It wasn't a ship. It wasn't even solid. It shimmered faintly, its outline constantly shifting like liquid shadow. "What is that?" Vurek whispered. No one had an answer. Moments later, the station's translation systems activated automatically. A voice filled every corridor and hall at once, calm, human. "Council members," it said. "This is Earth Command. Please do not be alarmed. What you are seeing is a projection, a communication field created through our gate network. It carries no weapon, no harm. We have come to discuss peace." Arv-10 felt a tremor in his chest. Peace. The word sounded strange now, too large, too sharp. He stepped forward, his voice steady. "This is Speaker Arv-10 of the Galactic Council. Earth Command, you appear uninvited, unannounced. Explain your presence." The human voice replied, polite and almost kind. "We do not wish to intrude, Speaker. But diplomacy requires both sides to speak. For too long we spoke softly while you silenced us. We can no longer afford silence." The shifting shadow outside slowly condensed into the image of a vast fleet. Not one or two ships, hundreds. They hung in perfect stillness, forming a ring around the station, their hulls absorbing all light. Yet there was no sign of aggression. No weapons charged, no fighters deployed, only presence. Inside, the chamber filled with murmurs of disbelief and fear. "How did they move an entire fleet here without detection?" someone whispered. Arv-10 stared out the window. "Because they didn't move," he said quietly. "They were already here." The human voice continued. "You have known us for generations. You traded with us, laughed with us, called us peaceful. But you never understood what peace means to us. It is not weakness. It is discipline. Every weapon we build to keep the silence. Every smile you mocked was a promise that we would not be the first to strike." A pause. "Until now, the Council's actions have tested that promise." The delegates shifted in their seats. Even Vurek, always confident, looked pale. Arv-10 took a breath. "And what do you demand?" "Respect," came the reply. "Return what was taken. Cease the raids. Stop treating our colonies as weak. And if we refuse?" There was no anger in the voice that answered. Only finality. "Then you will face what your own arrogance invited. And when that day comes, we will not shout and we will not warn. The stars themselves will go quiet. The transmission cut. The projection outside dissolved, leaving only the cold shine of the gas giant below. For a long while, the council chamber was filled with silence. No shouts, no arguments, just fear. Then Vurek spoke, voice low and trembling. "They could have destroyed us right now." "Yes," Arv-10 said. "But they didn't. That's what makes them dangerous." Across the galaxy in the human fleet's command vessel, Admiral Solon lowered her headset. "Transmission complete," a technician reported. Solon nodded. "Good. Pull back the fleet to half range. Maintain observation protocols. We give them time to decide." Envoy Mason stepped beside her, watching the starfield. "Do you think they'll choose peace?" Solon's expression remained calm. "They will choose survival. Peace may follow." In the quiet that followed, Mason looked at the holographic map, one side marked with the Council's vast dominion, the other with humanity's modest zones. Yet behind those human zones lay hidden networks, anchor gates, and defenses the Council could never comprehend. Humanity had spent decades pretending to be small while building something immense. Solon's voice broke the silence. "They'll call us monsters soon. They always do when they realize the prey was never prey." Mason smiled faintly. "Let them. We were never seeking worship. Only warning." He turned to leave but paused at the door. "You know, Admiral, sometimes I think the Council never feared our ships. They feared our patience." Solon looked out at the dark. "Patience," she repeated softly, "is the sharpest weapon we have." Back on the Council station, Arv-10 stood alone by the window, watching the stars fade as the station rotated. For the first time he felt small, not because humanity had threatened them, but because they had shown the truth of power. Control without cruelty, dominance without destruction. He whispered to himself, "They've been warning us all along, and we thought they were smiling." Far beyond the station, deep in the void, a faint shimmer moved, one last human ship vanishing back into the folds of space. No flash, no sound, no trace. Just silence and the lingering understanding that Earth had not stopped being kind yet, but it could. whenever it chose. The galaxy did not sleep that night. Every network, every news channel, every council world pulsed with one question: what happens now? The council's leaders had always believed in control through power. But now they were the ones being watched, and no fleet, no technology could see where the humans truly were. The idea of invisible watchers, calm, patient, and silent, spread terror more effectively than any invasion could. Inside the Grand Council Tower, the air was thick with unease. Speaker Arvton sat in the dim light of the main chamber. Around him, holograms of the delegates flickered from their home worlds, each face reflecting the same confusion and fear. Admiral Vurek stood at his side, arms folded, eyes burning with frustration. "We cannot just do nothing," Vurek said. "They're forcing us to bend without firing a single shot." Arvton didn't look up. "You think this is about bending? They are teaching us a lesson, Admiral. They're showing us what restraint looks like when backed by true strength." Vurek slammed a clawed hand against the table. "I won't accept that. We are the Council. We built this galaxy from chaos." "Yes," Arvton said softly. "And in doing so, we became the very chaos they learned to endure." A sharp tone interrupted them. A secure transmission. The room dimmed as the hologram formed again. Envoy Mason's calm, human face appeared in the air above them. "Speaker Arv-10," Mason greeted. "I hope your council has had time to think." The chamber filled with murmurs. Arvton raised a hand for silence. "Envoy Mason, you come again without invitation." Mason smiled faintly. "The council stopped sending invitations a long time ago." Vurek glared. "You speak as though you are our equal." The human's eyes turned toward him, calm but sharp. "Equal? Admiral, we never wanted to be your equal. We wanted to be your allies, but your arrogance made that impossible." Vurek's jaw tightened. "You overestimate your importance, human. The council spans thousands of worlds. And yet," Mason said, "a few words from Earth froze them all." Vurek's rage faltered. Arvton stepped in before the tension snapped. "Envoy, what is your purpose here?" Mason's tone softened. "We came to tell you that our patience has limits. The privateer fleets you disavowed, they were not just raiding cargo. They were taking people, civilians, scientists, children." A murmur rippled through the delegates. Mason continued. "We found their bodies on a moon near the Veil Nebula. 73 colonists, unarmed." His voice never rose, but each word carried the weight of something immeasurable. "Your reports called it an accident. We call it murder." The chamber fell silent. Even Vurek's anger dulled into shock. Mason looked directly into the recording drone, eyes unwavering. "We have buried our dead. Now we decide what comes next." Arvton's voice trembled slightly. "You said you wanted peace." "We still do," Mason said. "But peace must mean more than words on paper. It must mean truth and accountability." Arvton hesitated. "You're asking the council to confess?" "I'm asking the council to grow up," Mason said. Before anyone could reply, Mason lifted his hand slightly. "Look outside." The delegates turned to the window. The stars around the station shimmered, and one by one they shifted. What looked like constellations rearranged themselves, lines of faint light connecting across the sky. The pattern formed into a perfect grid, a vast network of faint blue lines that pulsed once gently like the rhythm of a heartbeat. "What is that?" Vurek whispered. "The lattice," Mason said. "A network of phase anchors built across this sector. It allows us to move faster than light without tearing space. We could have used it years ago. We chose not to. Until now." Arvton's eyes widened. "You're showing us your weapon." Mason shook his head. "Not a weapon, a reminder. You cannot dominate a species that has already mastered patience. You cannot frighten those who've spent centuries restraining themselves." Vurek took a step forward. "And if we resist?" Mason's expression didn't change. "Then the lattice becomes more than light in the sky." With that, the projection vanished and the grid outside dissolved back into stars. For a long while, no one spoke. The delegates looked to Arv-10, desperate for direction. He finally said, "If we fight them, we lose. If we ignore them, we lose slower. But if we listen..." Vurek cut him off. "You would submit to them?" "I would survive," Arv-10 replied. "And in survival, perhaps learn humility." The Admiral turned away, disgusted. "They've turned you into one of them." Arv-10 smiled faintly. "Perhaps that's the first intelligent thing we've done in years." That night, while the council argued through endless channels, Arvten stood alone on the observation deck. He watched the stars, each one a reminder of civilizations risen and fallen. Behind him, he heard the quiet steps of someone entering. It was Kethra, his young aide. "Speaker," she said softly, "the colonies are calling for answers. The people are afraid." "They should be," Arvten replied. "Fear is what happens when pride meets truth." Kethra hesitated. "Do you think the humans will attack?" "No," Arvten said. "They don't need to. They've already changed the balance. The council will never see itself as invincible again, and that may save us all." Kethra moved beside him, looking out the window. "I used to think they were strange," she whispered. "All that smiling, all that peace," Arvten nodded. "It wasn't peace. It was a warning." Somewhere beyond the window, a faint blue spark flickered, then vanished. On a distant planet orbiting a dying sun, the human command center monitored the reaction from afar. Admiral Solon watched as data filled her screen. "They've seen the lattice," she said. Envoy Mason stood beside her, quiet, unreadable. "And? They're afraid." Mason nodded slowly. "Good. Fear is the first step to understanding." Solon turned to him. "And what's the second?" He looked at the stars, their light spilling across the dark like slow fire. Respect. Silence filled the command center. For all their power, the humans didn't celebrate. There was no joy in victory, only the heavy calm of inevitability. Mason spoke again, voice low. "We've shown them enough. Now we wait." Solon looked at him curiously. "For what?" "For them to realize," he said, "that Earth's kindness was never weakness, it was mercy. And mercy always ends when the lesson is ignored." Back on the council station, dawn light reflected off the metal towers. Arvten remained at the window, eyes on the fading stars. "They warned us," he whispered, "and we laughed. Now the galaxy had gone quiet, too quiet. And in that silence, every world understood. Humanity's smile had not been surrender. It had been the calm before history changed forever.